Sierra Leone and Jamaica. I am so excited to be here. Again, I'm Rosalie Hamilton, the newly appointed Honorary Consul for Sierra Leone, the Republic of Sierra Leone and Jamaica. And I'm really excited to host this first in a series of online forums we call the Sierra Leone Jamaica Link Up. Our objectives are to raise awareness about the history, culture, economy, and society of Sierra Leone and Jamaica, respectively. And we want to facilitate open discussion between the people of Sierra Leone, Jamaica, and others in the African diaspora. And we want to create an opportunity for networking and collaboration because we really want to facilitate trade, especially trade in cultural and creative goods and services. So I'm especially excited to see this evolution of an idea come to fruition. This idea of a link up was rooted in conversations with Ambassador Sadiq Y. He's the US ambassador to the Republic of Sierra Leone based in Washington, DC, on a recent visit I had to Sierra Leone about 2 months ago. And I especially want to welcome Ambassador Y to this forum and to thank him again for the tremendous support that I've received in my role as Honorary Consul. I also want to acknowledge and welcome other members of the diplomatic corps from Sierra Leone, from Jamaica, who are online, as well as the staff at the Sierra Leone Embassy in Washington, DC. I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you so much for supporting me in my new role. Well, welcome everybody who's online. You've taken time to be with us today. I promise this is going to be an exciting journey in the past and you won't be wasting your time. I want to welcome my special friend and colleague, Kaule Kamara, who is in Sierra Leone. I want to give him a special thanks because he gave life to this first forum. When we were in conversation in Sierra Leone, he just heard the idea, he loved it and offered to do this presentation on the historical and cultural ties between Sierra Leone and Jamaica. I also want to thank the other presenters, Professor Clinton Hutton and Professor Joe Alley, who quickly responded to this invitation without any hesitation. And they were willing to present on this topic today, the Sierra Leone historical and cultural ties with Jamaica. Now, before they speak, allow me to welcome some of our key partners who've agreed to collaborate to bring this series of conversations that we're going to do from time to time called the Sierra Leone Jamaica Link Up. And I want to especially welcome Ambassador Richard Bernal. And Ambassador Bernal is the lead research fellow at the P.J. Patterson Institute for African Caribbean Advocacy. Ambassador Bernal.
Good morning all and good evening to those in the homeland and to the global audience, greetings. Thank you, Madam Chair. Allow me to welcome the Ambassador of Sierra Leone and other diplomats and to acknowledge the panelists who I'm looking forward to listening to and learning from. On behalf of the P.J. Patterson Institute for African Caribbean Advocacy, I bring you greetings, in particular, the statesman in residence, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, P.J. Patterson, has asked me to extend his greetings to you as well as on behalf of the Institute. The Institute was set up in 2020 with the purpose of trying to strengthen relations between Africa, the Caribbean, and the globally dispersed African diaspora. We seek to mobilize civil society through a variety of avenues, ranging from research to cultural activities. And our objective here is to complement the ongoing government-to-government relationship by strengthening the people-to-people relationship. We're very happy to partner with our colleague institutions in this first of a series of Jamaica Sierra Leone Link Up seminars. This is a most appropriate way to start by looking at the historical and cultural ties between Sierra Leone and Jamaica. I wish you a successful seminar. I will be listening keenly. And once again, congratulations, particularly to Rosalie Hamilton, who, as one of our distinguished colleagues, a professor, has been the energy and one of the initiators of the relationship with Sierra Leone and Jamaica, and now in the form of this first seminar of a series of link-up meetings. Thank you and welcome to all.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Bernal. And the audience will hear more and see more about Ambassador Bernal. We will be doing an Africa Caribbean Forum in February. You'll hear more about it. And this will be led by Ambassador Bernal at the PJ Patterson Institute for African and Caribbean Advocacy. All right, and another partner, important partner, we have two tertiary institutions in Sierra Leone who have agreed to partner with us. And I'm very, very pleased to welcome Professor Kila Mansouri. He's the Vice Chancellor at Bay College at the University of Sierra Leone. Professor Mansouri.
Okay, I got a message that the host is not allowing me.
Okay.
Yes, I did not get you. Is it my time for my statement?
Yes, sure.
Okay, okay. Thanks, and good afternoon to all. Point of correction, I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Frabe College, not the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sierra Leone. Frabe College is just a campus. Anyway, at this point, let me express my thanks to the Honorary Consul of the Republic of Sierra Leone and Jamaica for inviting us as Frabe College, the University of Sierra Leone, to participate in this notable conversation on exploring Sierra Leone's historical and cultural ties with Jamaica. Frabe College has a long and strong bond with Jamaica. The Maroons, who were exiled from Jamaica to Nova Scotia, Canada, I think in 1796, Professor Ali will correct me on this, I'm not sure, and repatriated to Sierra Leone in 1800, provided strategic leadership and support to the establishment of Frabe College in Freetown in 1827 as the first Western-style college in Africa. We used to call Frabe College the Athens of Africa because most African leaders in those days, most Africans studied here, got their Western-style education at Frabe College. Historically, Frabe College has served as one of the most important academic institutions in the Black world that have contributed to the brain trust for Pan-Africanism. But anyway, I'm not a historian. That's why I invited my renowned, seasoned professor of history, Professor Joe Ali, and he will elaborate more on this during his presentation today. Okay? But on a personal note, I share a similar history with the Maroons. They were sent to Nova Scotia for resisting English colonialism in Jamaica. I was sent to Nova Scotia by the government of Sierra Leone at the height of the rebel war in this country to pursue a PhD program in energy and environmental engineering at the Technical University of Nova Scotia. A program I completed in 1998. I started in 1994 and completed in 1998. But while I was there, I forged a very, very strong bond with the Black Nova Scotians. in Nova Scotia. And most of them claim to be Sierra Leoneans. Even those that came from, the Maroons that came to Nova Scotia from Jamaica, that were there, told me their origin is Sierra Leone. So I was very, very close to them. I was almost elected member of parliament out there, but somehow I did not win the election. Anyway, upon graduating from the Technical University of Nova Scotia, I was hired. I lectured there for 14 years before coming back to Sierra Leone. And then eventually I'm heading Frabe College. There's a strong tie between slave trade and Frabe College. And in fact, the first site of Frabe College was where the Maroons resided upon their arrival in Sierra Leone. Okay? And finally, I hope that this conversation will strengthen the political and cultural ties between Jamaica and Sierra Leone, and in the process result in a sustainable collaborative linkage between higher education institutions in general in Jamaica and Sierra Leone. I thank you all.
Thank you so very much. We also have a representative from the other tertiary institution in Sierra Leone, the University of McKinney, and he's the Dean of Academic Affairs at the University of McKinney, Reverend George Bamanja. Sorry, Reverend George Bamanja. Are you here? I know that there was some difficulties making connection. So if you're here, just let us know. I don't know if Kaule, if you were able to confirm, if he was able to join us. If not, let's move on to Milton Samuda, who is chair of the Institute of Law and Economics. Over to you, Milton.
Thank you very much, Rosalie. Very happy to be here. Want to say a special welcome to all who have joined us, and to recognize Professor Hamilton, the recently appointed Honorary Consul for the Republic of Sierra Leone and Jamaica, and congratulate her on that appointment. A special welcome also to Ambassador White and to all the other dignitaries who were recognized by the Master of Ceremonies. I just want to record the absolute pleasure of the Institute of Law and Economics at being involved in this, the first conversation in a series that will explore the historic ties between two peoples. ILE is a not-for-profit NGO originally focused on fostering collaboration, research, and consultancy, public education between legal and economic professionals with a view to promoting a multidisciplinary approach to sustainable development. And that was being done through the lens of education and training, and particularly in law, economics, and business. But things evolve. And now ILE embraces the promotion of innovation and has partnered with the Democratizing Innovation in the Americas, forged in partnership with Trust for the Americas, USA, the OAS, and City Foundation. Then too, because of our overarching interest in the development of business, especially in the MSME sector, we have also pushed for the development of trade between Jamaica and non-traditional countries led by the continent of Africa. For far too long, that trade has been a dream, then an intent, then a plan, and it has not sufficiently materialized. It must now be robustly pursued and executed with a fierce urgency, given the imperatives of economic growth for our economies and for our peoples. And in that regard, there really is no better place to start than between Sierra Leone and Jamaica. Two countries and peoples sharing a close historical and cultural bond, forged in the struggle for freedom, and about which we will learn so much more this afternoon. You got a taste of it from Professor Mansouri. And that is the relationship to be built upon and explored, and also to be monetized. So with the appointment of, Rosalie, energetic, resourceful, and visionary, I think that that potential for close collaboration in trade has taken a leap forward. So let's start by learning about our shared history and culture and understanding it. Let's lay a foundation for meaningful and economically rewarding collaborations and friendships. And let's anchor that foundation in a knowledge of self and of our history. I am optimistic that simultaneously with doing so, we will connect our respective countrymen and women with opportunities for mutually beneficial collaborations across a range of industries, products, and services. I know we will trade. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Enjoy this first in the series of Linkup.
Thank you so much, Milton Samuda. And of course, without any further ado, we're going to invite a very special person to join us, Ambassador Siddiqui Y. He's the U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Sierra Leone in Washington, D.C. Ambassador Y has concurrent accreditation to Brazil, Canada, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Jamaica, the plurinational state of Bolivia, the Republic of Chile, and the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He has a plate full of responsibilities. Over the past 20 years, Ambassador Y has been a high-profile leader with responsibilities in the United States in the spheres of diplomacy, public safety, public health care advocacy, community relations, social empowerment, and much more. And so I'd spend another 10 minutes reading his resume. So without any further ado, allow me to welcome Ambassador Y to just say a few words. Ambassador.
Dr. Rosalie, this is Mohammed.
Yes.
Can we switch to the next speaker? Ambassador, I just got a call from this, the White State Department. He should be joining us soon. Okay.
Okay, great. All right, so after Ambassador, we were actually going to go into our presentations. So let me just say, before we introduce the presenters, that we all of us on this call, I'm sure, know the very famous and powerful words of our national hero, the Honorable Marcus Magaya Garvey. A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. So I'm here to assure you, at the end of our presentation today, you will have knowledge of your past, origin, culture, and you will stand tall like a tree with solid roots in Sierra Leone and Jamaica. And so I'm going to start then with our first presenter, Professor Clinton Hutton, and he's a retired professor of Caribbean political philosophy, culture, and aesthetics at the University of the West Indies, Mona, here in Jamaica. He's currently director at the Institute of Technological and Educational Research at the Maico University College. He's an award-winning researcher and author, and is a distinguished scholar at the P.J. Patterson Institute for African Caribbean Advocacy at UWI Mona, here in Jamaica. In the interest of time, we will share the bios of all the presenters that you see on the screen in the chat, so you have a chance to read it, but we want to move right into our presentation by Professor Clinton Hutton. Over to you, Professor Hutton.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon again. I'm going to do a presentation on the Maroons as part of the connection with Jamaica and Sierra Leone. The Maroons who became part of that community in 1800 and who represent part of the national cultural ethos of Sierra Leone in the form of being part of the Creole culture that became the binding culture for the different ethnic groups in Sierra Leone. There were two Maroon Wars in Jamaica. The British took Jamaica from the Spanish in 1655. And the Spanish, as a result of that, two things happened. Freed their enslaved, and two, many of the enslaved themselves took the opportunity to escape into the mountainous regions of Jamaica in the central part of the country, the Blue Mountains and the Cockpit Mountains. That first Maroon War against the British ended in 1739 with the first peace treaty between the British and the Maroons. The second Maroon War took place 56 years after that treaty. After the British betrayed the trust of the Maroons, of both men, women, and children, from the community of Trelawney Town, and were sent to Nova Scotia in 1796, early 1796. And then sometime after that, the majority of them were sent to Sierra Leone, while some remained in Nova Scotia, or sent to Sierra Leone in 1800. The Maroon community at the time, that particular community had close to 700 inhabitants, men, women, and children. That is Trelawney Town. The bulk of them, therefore, some 500 or so, were sent to Sierra Leone. And of course, these became part of the development of the national cultural ethos of Sierra Leone. The Second Maroon War was triggered at the beginning of July of 1795, when two young men from Trelawney Town were arrested and charged for killing some tame hogs. And they were taken before the magistrates in Montego Bay and sentenced to be lashed by the cartels and to be lashed by an enslaved man. And this really sent shockwaves into the Maroon community of Trelawney Town, that such a thing could have happened. They protested, saying that this was a violation of the treaty. They felt humiliated, having two of their members beaten, whipped in public in Montego Bay by an enslaved man, when according to the treaty, the type of things that they were charged for would have been taken care by the authorities in Trelawney Town. So it immediately mobilized the community of Trelawney Town they held a meeting of over 300 persons. And out of the meeting came 3 resolutions. One, that the law with respect to public whippings should be altered. 2, that the removal of the current Maroon superintendent, which was one superintendent, was Major James. One of the things that used to happen in the Maroon communities, you used to have what they call superintendents, 1 or 2 white men usually living in the communities. When the new governor came to Jamaica in that same year, he removed the 2 men, James and his son, from Trelawney town. And what the Trelawney Maroons were doing was saying that they have trust in this man, and that he and his son should be retained as a superintendent. And the 3rd resolution was that the granting of 300 additional acres of land to the Maroons from that community, because the land that they have, that it was overused and their cultivation wasn't doing so well. And in fact, they call out 3 plantations nearby that they would like to take possession of. So those were the 3 resolutions coming out of the meetings. Of course, prominent planters in the area also had a meeting, and they also met with the Maroons, and the Maroons told them their position, and the planters were tending to agree with the position of the Maroons, and that what they asked for should be met, which was soundly rejected by the Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica, the Earl of Balcarres. Not only that, he rejected them. He told them in no uncertain word that they should give up themselves. They should come in and surrender. So there was a sort of a split between the planter class, especially those living near to Trelawney town, and the governor of Jamaica and his military. And one can argue that in part this stemmed from the Haitian Revolution, which was taking place at that time 100 miles away from Jamaica. And in fact, Maroons also knew, Toussaint Louverture, for example, used to communicate with Maroons in Jamaica. There was a fear in Jamaica that the blacks in Jamaica would follow the Asian model and destroy British colonialism in Jamaica. And that is one of the reasons why the governor of Jamaica took that hardline position, feeling that the Maroons, who have seen battle against the British, their legendary leader, Kojo, was highly regarded as a military strategist. The Maroons themselves saw battle with the British. And in fact, if you follow the literature and dispatches by British military chiefs, they were of the view that they could not defeat the Maroons. That was the view in 1738-39, which led to the first peace treaty. And then we see coming out towards the end of this later war, the same thing being repeated. Now, the Maroon community square off the first thing that they did was to burn the new part of Trelawney Town, which is called New. So you have the old town and you have a new town. They felt that the new town was not sufficiently safe from invaders, and therefore they burnt it to the ground and retreated with all their forces into the old town. The old town was then attacked. They were attacked by the British and planter militia. And as a result of that, in fact, one estimate at the time stated that the number of Maroon fighters amounted to just under 300. And the British forces against them was close to 5,000, including 1,500 European troops, right? Part of the contingent that was fighting in Haiti, because under Captain Williamson, Britain invaded Haiti in order to restore slavery. And there was a big struggle between the French and the British across the Caribbean as a result of the French Revolution and the fear that the British had that this revolution was a bad sign and will incite the Black population in the Caribbean against British colonialism. So here we have less than 300 Maroons up against almost 5,000 British troops and planter militia. On the first day of the fighting, it was described as where the British soldiers, in fact, the militia first, a force of them under Sanford, Captain Sanford, tried to invade Trelawney Town. And this is what was written then, that an unexpected and tremendous volley of small arms from behind the trees was fired from the left upon the column from one end to the other. All pressed forward, and Colonel Sanford, at the head of his advance towards the town, where two paths leading to it meet. Another volley was now poured from behind the trees, and Sanford fell close by Captain Robertson. On his death, a panic pervaded the whole body. Disorder ensued. No one was collected enough to direct or advise, and flight seemed the only recourse for safety. The troops to the nearest way from the town to headquarters, some of them keeping up a scattered fire of an imaginary enemy. No Maroon having appeared since the fall of Sanford, there was no recovering the panic that seized the troops. All contended for the front of the race. So this is the first clash of Sansford's command. He and his quartermaster, 14 regular troops, Colonel Gallimore, and 12 of the militia, and 8 of the volunteers were killed. Not a single Maroon had been killed. In fact, they didn't see the Maroons because of their camouflage and their guerrilla warfare tactics. Yet, the governor of Jamaica wrote to the Duke of Portland and credited the St. James militia in their drawn engagement with having repulsed the Maroons with considerable loss. No such thing took place. The men under Colonel Sanford's command were credited with changing and cutting down 11 of them. And the loss suffered by the militia happened because the young soldiers failed to follow instruction. If we follow wars taking place today, we can see the same thing being said. So the war continued from August into September, into November, into December, at which point the British started to put out feelers to the Maroons for a peace treaty to be engaged with. Because they again came to the position that it was not possible to defeat the Maroons. One of the things that they tried to do was to starve the Maroons, only to find out later in the forest, in the cockpit country, they found a community built by the same Maroons they were fighting, of over 300 huts, pigs, all sorts of foodstuff. The Maroons were able to be self-sufficient in the food that they had. And so when they tried to starve them to their knees, the Maroons were able to supply themselves and to supply their children and family. So the Maroons took up the order and to meet for this peace treaty, which they did, and which peace treaty was signed on the 21st of December, 1795. They asked for specific things. For example, that they be given land, that they should not be removed from Jamaica. And this is after they gave up themselves with their families. And as usual, the British renege on what they agreed to. And the Maroons were shipped out of Jamaica to Nova Scotia. And the bulk of them later sent to Sierra Leone. And on in 1800, and one of the things that happened on their arrival, there was some level of conflict in Freetown, and the Maroons were employed to put down that conflict. If you follow the Second Maroon War, it was part of a general ferment across Jamaica. There were enslaved people who joined the Maroons, even though there's a history, according to the first Maroon Treaty, of Maroons handing back to the British enslaved Africans who ran away from the plantation. We now see enslaved Africans rallying and supporting the Maroons, even while other Maroon communities did not join them. So there was a general ferment, and the general ferment was twofold. One, the fear of Jamaica becoming a second Haiti. And secondly, that there were enslaved Africans who escaped from Jamaica on rafts and went into freedom in Haiti. Thirdly, when the British invaded Haiti in order to restore slavery and to take over the colony from the French, they were soundly defeated by Toussaint's soldiers. And so they had to withdraw from Haiti. And in withdrawing from Haiti, they were taking back Black troops. There were about 17,000 Black troops trained in Jamaica by the British military to go to fight to restore slavery in Haiti. And when the Haitians defeated them, Toussaint ordered that these Black soldiers remain in Haiti because he would not allow them to return to Jamaica to be enslaved. And so knowledge of Haiti by both sides played an important psychological impact on the development of what one could call a sort of a revolutionary situation in 1795 in Jamaica, and in which the spirit of this consisted of the Maroons from Trelawney Town. And of course, we know that today in Sierra Leone, that community is part of that national ethos and part of the national cultural landscape of creolity in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Clinton Hutton. Wow, that's certainly deepening our understanding of these Maroon Wars and the awesome fighting power and that connection with Haiti, amazing. And we learned certainly about more information about British betrayal, story of our history. All right, so before we move on to the next presenter, we're gonna have a few words from Ambassador Sadiki Wai. And as I mentioned earlier, Ambassador is the US Ambassador in the Republic of Sierra Leone in Washington. Ambassador. We're able to, I hope if you're on mute.
I think,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good.
Thank you very much. I, first of all, have to apologize for being late. Of course, our distinguished ambassador, Professor Ajabawa, knows that emergencies do call all the time. While I was preparing, then the State Department, there was a quick meeting that I had to go to. So my profound apologies to all of you for my being late. Well, Your Excellency, Honorable Ambassador Professor Ajay Bofa, Your Excellency Ambassador Richard Bernal, and Professor Milton Samuda, the Chairman of the Institute of Law and Justice, Law and Economics, Professor Kela Mansari, the Vice Chancellor of Furabe College, the University of Sierra Leone. There was a slight change I was made to, and they gave me some notes that somebody is representing Father Joseph Toure, but if I'm not politically correct, so please forgive me, whoever that representative is. And then most especially, let me also say thank you to Professor Clinton Hutton. For one moment, I thought I was in a great history lesson that I've learned a lot. This is Professor Joseph Ali, one of our prominent history professors in our University of Sierra Leone. Professor Ali always helps us out here in the United States whenever we call upon him. And then most especially, my friend and brother, Mr. Kiwule Kamara, someone that we've traveled the road, we've been here. But most especially, let me commend the incredible consul, Honorable Rosalie Hamilton, for convening all of us today. For one moment, I thought what started as a very, very small event, she has made it bigger than beyond our imagination. As an embassy and as a country, we're eternally grateful to this great daughter of Jamaica, West Indies, now representing our country, the Republic of Sierra Leone. Well, let me just make 3 quick points, and then I will beg to leave because I have to leave. I don't want to be a politician, I'm a people-tician. So, but I would have to beg your kind indulgence if I could leave. The importance of collaboration with higher education institutions in Sierra Leone and Jamaica in deepening the historical, cultural, economic, and social understanding of Sierra Leone and Jamaica. That's a very, very important point for one of this collaboration. And number 2, we want to also highlight the significance of our country, Sierra Leone and Jamaica Link Up, in not only deepening the understanding of our respective countries, and importantly, enhancing trade and fostering development in our respective countries. But we want to make sure that when you go to Jamaica and you come to Sierra Leone, that there will be no boundaries. We have those hands across borders. And then thirdly, and most especially, we are so grateful that your daughter and our Honorable Consul, Honorable Dr. Hamilton, has graciously agreed to serving our country, and I know she would do it with excellence and distinction. And for that matter, the consulate itself will be officially opening up in 2023. And that Office of Honorary Consul in Jamaica, and to explore opportunities for trade, investment and trade between the two countries, as well as the cultural ties and services. So that the details of when that is going to happen, and I'm sure you'll be well informed, and I want to invite everybody to be there because I'm going to be there to officially do the honor. So on that note, let me give thanks to all of the organizers, all of the collaborators, all of the participants, and most especially our own colleagues here at the Embassy of Sierra Leone to the United States who have given a lot of time, particularly Mr. Mohamed Kousia and his colleagues, Abdul Densi and Mr. Fofana, who have worked tirelessly, and Ms. Rachel, to really bring this, our participation together. Well, I don't want to overstay my stay. The Honorary Consul was very clear in telling me that I only have 3 minutes. So I'm going to abide by the directives of the Council. But I want to also say thank you to Professor Bawa for gracing this occasion with his presence. I mean, for those of you who don't know, that return, when the great return to Ghana, that was the architect of the Ghana return to Ghana, descendants of globally. So Dr. Bawa, thank you for honoring us with your presence, and thank you so much. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I want to thank Ambassador Ball for your contribution and your presence here. Thank you very much. And without further ado, we want to continue this awesome history lesson. And I want to now introduce Professor Joe Ali. He's Professor of History at Forbay College, and he's taught at Forbay College for about 38 years. And he's currently Dean at the School of Postgraduate Studies. And he's a well-known leading authority on history and culture of Sierra Leone. His seminal works are A New History of Sierra Leone and the Sierra Leone Since Independence, History of a Post-Colonial State. Professor Joe Ali, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Rosalie Hamilton, for inviting me to this forum. Let me start by thanking all of the people who made this important gathering possible, especially Professor Rosalie Hamilton and her team, Ambassador Patterson of the Institute for African Caribbean Advocacy, and our own very ambassador, Siddiqui Y. This is indeed a great move, and I sincerely hope that it will be the beginning of greater things to come. In opening remarks, Professor Hamilton quoted a very famous activist who was very instrumental in the Back to Africa movement. I may follow along that trail and preface my talk by quoting a Jamaican legend. One memorable line in the 1973 song by the legendary Jamaican reggae artist Bob Marley, Get Up, Stand Up, states, half the story has never been told. Indeed, half the Black story is yet to be told. And even more importantly, it's not just to be told, we as Black people should be the subjects and not objects of that history. We still have a long way to go. Half the story has not been told. Also, in a posthumous publication by the late Bob Marley, again in her track, Buffalo Soldier, he says, if you're, then you will know where you are coming from. And I think this is very relevant to this guy. If you know your history, then you would know where you are coming from. And so this exercise we have started today, to me, it's very significant because it's another attempt by us to better know our history and to tell that history in the way we feel it, in the way we experience it. I think it's a very important thing. And that also relates to the history of the Maroons. Professor Houghton has eloquently given us the history of the Maroons. And so a repeat is not necessary here. But kindly allow me to say a few things. When we talk about the Maroons, two things readily come to mind. One, they represent a classic example of African resistance to enslavement. And I think that is significant. When we talk about the Maroon population, particularly with respect to Jamaica and beyond, they clearly tell us that Africans have never accepted enslavement, and they have done everything humanly possible to free themselves from that enslavement. We are told, for instance, that a handful of the Maroons went up the mountains, in a secluded place where they were self-sufficient, provided everything for them. And it calls to mind the Latin adage, montani semper liberi. Mountaineers are always free. And it became very difficult for the British colonial soldiers to track them, hence the peace treaties. And another element that readily comes to mind is the innate desire of the Maroons to be free. They search for freedom. They search for self-rule. They search for independence. Allow them to go to great lengths to heroically withstand the British colonizers. And that's important. And again, talking about the Maroons, still prefacing my talk, one is reminded of British colonial policies. One, deceitfulness, insincerity. And as Professor Horton clearly pointed out, they reneged on the promises they had made with the Maroons, particularly after the 1795 war, despite the warnings that the then colonial military officer gave them, Walpole gave them. The British colonial administration went against this. They reneged on their promise. Another element that comes to mind is what I would call the British infamous policy of divide and rule. Divide, rule, and conquer. And we see that clearly displayed in Jamaica when they succeeded in drawing a wedge between the Trelawney Maroons and the rest of the Maroon population, who unfortunately decided not to join their kith and king in the Second Maroon War. Now, let me continue from where Professor Horton left, and I'm going to make my presentation a little short so that we will work within the stipulated time. We now know that for a variety of reasons, the Jamaica Maroons were transported from Jamaica to Halifax in Nova Scotia, which was a British colonial territory. And this was mainly to solve a political and security problem in Jamaica, for fear that these ones would influence, what was happening, would be influenced by what was happening in Haiti and other places, and continue their war of independence. And as the numbers of the Maroons grew, there was this real fear, particularly with respect to the Trelawney Maroons, that they had to encode national security. And in an attempt to solve this problem, the British, reneging on their promise, transported these Maroons, particularly the Trelawney Maroons, to Halifax in Nova Scotia. And why Halifax in Nova Scotia? Well, the British had already had an experiment. They had succeeded in transporting the Black loyalists. These were Black enslaved Africans in America who had helped the British in the American War of Independence with the promise of freedom. England lost the war, and these Black loyalists could not stay in America. And so they were taken to Nova Scotia, to Nova Scotia, and given a series of promises, which again the British failed to uphold. Because of these and several reasons, they were eventually brought to Sierra Leone. And it was these Nova Scotians that gave the name Freetown to our capital in Sierra Leone. They came in 1792. So that experiment had already been there. And when there were plans to send the Maroons elsewhere, Nova Scotia came in readily. Again, it was hoped that these Maroons who have been brought to Nova Scotia would help to build that colony. One, they would provide cheap labor for the white folks there. And secondly, and even more importantly, it was hoped that they would be enlisted in the army, because these were battle-tested people, as Professor Horton has rightly pointed out. And so they will be enlisted in the army in case there will be an attack by the French. You know, the British, the English, and the French were fighting over Canada. And so it was hoped that these Maroons enlisted in the English colonial army would ward off any possible French attack. So these were the two main reasons, but they didn't work, particularly the fact that these Maroons were not prepared to do menial labor for very small sum. So they didn't like that. And added to that was the harsh climate. The winters in Nova Scotia are particularly harsh. I attended a conference in Halifax some 10 years ago, and unfortunately, this was during winter, and I can tell you that it was no fun. So, and the winters were getting harsher and harsher. And so the Maroons requested that they be returned to Jamaica. But of course, that was not possible. Practically for what I have said, that these people, it was believed by the colonial administration that they would pose a security problem. And so they could not be sent to back to Jamaica. Freetown, again, was the ready answer because of the experiments with the Nova Scotians. So on the 7th of August, 1800, 3 shiploads of Maroons, numbering around 500, 550 or thereabout, left the shores of Halifax for Sierra Leone, and they arrived there at the end of September that same year. And this leads to an interesting story about Maroons. Their arrival in Sierra Leone in 1800 was particularly auspicious for the Sierra Leone Company administration. The Sierra Leone Company was formed by a group of British merchant philanthropists who had encouraged the Nova Scotians to go back to be able to immigrate to Sierra Leone. But before the Nova Scotian immigration, the company officials had promised the Nova Scotians a lot of things. They would give them free land, they would be masters of their own destiny, and all that kind of thing. But above all, in fact, they had promised that they would govern themselves. So this desire of freedom was quite strong among the Nova Scotian population. However, when they arrived in Sierra Leone, it was a totally different ballgame. And because of these and several other reasons, like the imposition of tax, the quitrents, made the Nova Scotians lose faith in the Sierra Leone Company administration. And the long and short of the matter is that they rebelled. They took up arms against the Sierra Leone Company administration in 1800. And they almost overwhelmed the company's forces, but for the timely arrival of the Maroons and a detachment of the Royal African Corps. And so they turned the scales in favor of the Nova Scotian soldiers, and so the rebellion was suppressed. But it initially soured relations between the Maroons on the one hand and the Nova Scotian settlers on the other, because the latter could not understand why their own African brethren could join forces with an alien administration to conquer them. But given the circumstances at the time, it was understandable that the Maroons, whose benefactors in quotes had been the Sierra Leone Company administration, to join forces with them to fight against the so-called rebels. Of course, in time, they packed up their differences. But that 1800 war in Sierra Leone, which many people say was the first modern coup d'etat in Sierra Leone, had huge implications for the future repatriation of Blacks from the Americas, and particularly from America to Sierra Leone. The Nova Scotians were considered troublemakers. And so the British lost faith in them as instruments of modernization. And from then onwards, all kinds of disparaging remarks were made against the Nova Scotians. And as I've already pointed out, in time, the Maroons and the Nova Scotians, packed their differences, and they lived amicably side by side. When the Maroons arrived, they were given some land to the west of today's Central Business District in Freetown. There they settled and created Maroon Town. These are people they already are so passionate about their identity that even when they were in Nova Scotia, and in Freetown, they also created Maroon Towns. And this was a town situated between Walpole Street and Kington. And those who are familiar with the geography of Freetown will know exactly where that is. And they came with some names, we perhaps to remember their origin, where they had come from. Some of the streets in that neighborhood were named after places in Jamaica, like Trelawney Street, which I think has now been renamed Lamina Sanko. Ms. Asato Smith can correct me there, as former chair of the Monuments and Relics Commission. So we had Trelawney Street, we had Walpole Street, possibly after the military commander in Jamaica who seems to support the peace treaty between the Maroons and the colonial administration. And despite their small numbers, the Maroons really had a great influence in the future development of the colony of Sierra Leone and the capital Freetown particularly. These Maroons settled in Freetown and they were there for quite a while. However, following the British abolition of the transatlantic slave trade, which created some labor shortage in the Americas, a number of Maroons were either cajoled or encouraged to return to Jamaica and the Caribbean generally as indentured servants. And so some of them left, but a good number still remained in Freetown, contributing to the cultural and intellectual development of the colony. And my colleague Keule Kamara will dilate more on the cultural influences of the Maroons, or the legacy of the Maroons in Freetown. But allow me to say a few things about the cultural influences from an intellectual point of view. Some of these Maroons were Christians. Of course, that is not to say that they totally abandoned their African heritage, and not very comfortable with the way the Nova Scotians worshipped in their places of worship. The Maroons took upon themselves to establish their own church, the Methodist St. John Maroon Church in central Freetown, which was then located on Westmoreland Street, now called Shakansimi Street. So they created their own church. And it was not just a church. This was where they met for social and other gatherings. It was a very significant landscape in the heart of Freetown. And this was in 1822. And the church is incidentally 200 years old now, which was recently celebrated. And in 1956, the Sierra Leone Monuments and Relics Commission declared the St. John Maroon Church a national heritage. And that's important. One of the very first heritages declared by the Monuments Commission. This was done in 1956. And let me read an excerpt from the Monuments and Relics Commission annual report of 1955-56 on page 5. And it said, among others, this is one of the oldest places of worship in the city, dating from 1820, when the founder received a crown grant of the land between Percival and Liverpool Streets with frontage in Westmoreland Street. It is the only church that bears the name of one of the original groups who formed this colony, the Maroons from Jamaica. And it is in the part of Freetown originally allotted to them and called Maroon Town. Another excerpt from Vistas of the Heritage of Sierra Leone said in part, the Maroon community was always a small one, but the church was at the center of the social and religious activities of the people of Maroon Town, from Walpole Street to Kington, which was the extent of their location. Although Maroons had fully integrated into by the third decade of the 19th century with other settlers to form a new group, the Creole, and over time had dispersed throughout the country. Nonetheless, a good many of the original Maroon families continue to worship in their community church, which happens to be one of the oldest churches in Sierra Leone. So you see, it was not just any church. It was a cultural symbol representing the soul of the Maroon people. Another important cultural landscape legacy of the Maroons is the Bodos, which Keule would talk more about it. The Bodos, bird houses, which used to form an important, facet in the landscape of Freetown, particularly in central Freetown and in the mountain villages of Freetown. These were two-story cabin-like structures, and they are very remarkable for their unique architectural design. And interestingly, we still have a few Bodos in Freetown. They have withstood the elements despite, their small structure and being made of wood. Where newer and more modern buildings have collapsed, these ones have stood the test of time. Unfortunately, in 1940, the colonial government decreed that no more boat houses should be built in Freetown because they were kind of fire hazard, And it also became difficult to maintain this because timber was becoming quite expensive, But we still have these, which form an important landscape in Freetown. Then, of course, we have Gumbe music. Again, I will leave that to Keule to talk about Gumbe music, which is an important legacy of the Maroon population. The Maroons played a critical role in the development of Creole society. This was a society that evolved by the mid-19th century as a result of interaction between the various settler communities, the original Black settlers who came to the colony in 1787, the Nova Scotians who came in 1792, and the Maroons who came in 1800 on the one hand, and various African groups like the recaptives or the liberated Africans who were released on the shores of Freetown following the abolition of the slave trade. And of course, these mingled again with the local communities in Sierra Leone to form a very unique culture called Creole. And Creole has played a very important role in the development of the country. Apart from the fact that these were the first sets of people who went across the length and breadth of West Africa, spreading Western civilization and culture. Hence, Sierra Leone was then called the mother of British West Africa, because Sierra Leone provided the technical know-how to these colonies. an important institution formed in 1827, which Professor Caleb Masai alluded to, Frobe College, became the Athens of West Africa, because like old Athens in Greece, this was the intellectual hub of the West Coast. And the Maroons played a very big role in the development of that culture. Today, the Maroons have mingled like other settler groups with the rest of the Sierra Leone population, but there are still prominent Sierra Leoneans who can trace their ancestry to the Maroons. And I will just name a few for want of time. We have Justice Francis Smith, who was the second Sierra Leonean to qualify as barrister in 1871. We are told he traced his ancestry from the Maroons. We have the Kesley Hayfords, the sisters, Adelaide Kesley Hayford and Gladys Kesley Hayford. Adelaide was an activist of cultural nationalism, and she was a pioneer of women's education in Sierra Leone. Gladys, we are told, was the first Sierra Leonean to write in the Creole language. Then we have Joseph Gerard Code, commonly called Daddy Stag, who is a rapper, and his music is very important, particularly to the young people of Sierra Leone. Then we have our dear old Constance Cummins John. Constance Cummins John was the first woman to serve as mayor of Freetown. And even perhaps more significantly in contemporary times, her portrait is on our new currency note. The new 20 Leone note has Constance Cummins John's portrait, and young people generally call it Mama Sharp. You know, it's there. Then we have the late Professor Edred Dorusimi Jones, very big intellectual, and was once principal of Frobe College. So we have people like these who, in spite of the fact that they are Creole, they still trace or have traced their ancestry to the Maroon population. So the 550 people who came, men, women, and some children, in 1800, despite their small numerical strength, and despite the fact that they had over the years mingled with the rest of the colony population to produce a new culture called Sierra Leone, they have historically and culturally played a very important role in the development of our nation. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Professor Ali. That was really awesome. You're absolutely right. Half of the story has never been told. Wow, we really understand a little better that Maroons search for freedom and self-determination beyond Jamaica. And, you know, the whole question of the links, the Maroon town in Sierra Leone, that link to Frobe College is important. And thank you so much for us. We heard more promises and betrayal from the British. Really, really rich history. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, before we go on to our next presenter, I want to just welcome the Dean of Academic Affairs at the University of Makeni, Reverend George Baumanja. Can you jump on and just say a few words before we have the presentation by Kauli Kamara? Reverend George? Are you here? If you're speaking, you're on mute. I think Kauli Kamara, you are also with him. So if Kauli is able to unmute, then we can get the presentation. So if he's not here, then we'll just move right on to Kauli.
Ibrahim. Okay, thank you, Professor. I was saying sorry I came in a little late because
no problem at all.
To some other urgent issues. It's a pleasure being here. Honestly, as some others have said, I have refreshed a lot of my history today, and I'm beginning to appreciate more and more the ties between our two countries, Jamaica and Sierra Leone. These ties have come a long way, and I'm convinced, having listened to what all the professors have said, I'm convinced that our universities, the University of Makeni, University of Sierra Leone, and the University in Jamaica can come together to forge stronger ties to further develop this union, this beautiful history we have in common. Our people have a lot of things they share, and Professor Joedi Ali just mentioned a few areas from names of streets we carry in Sierra Leone to, these are facts that really touch our history so much and bind us together so much as two countries. I want to appreciate this fact, and I want to say it's a blessing for the University of Makeni to be part of this. And thanks to Professor Keole, we shall continue to be linked to this, and we shall continue to do our best to promote such ties. We look forward to further cooperation and collaboration, and we look forward to making our own contribution where possible, so that Sierra Leone and Jamaica may continue to rejoice in what we share and hold so kindly, and continue to forge ahead, not only in trade, but also in areas of research, in many other areas of collaboration as we can. I thank you all for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know that your Vice Chancellor wanted to be here and had an unfortunate death in the family. So I do want to thank you very much, Ibrahim Joseph Conte, on behalf of the University of Makeni. So I now move on to Kaule Kamara. He's a poet, multimedia storyteller, a lecturer with a wide experience in culture, government, academia, and media. Kaule Kamara has lectured for 25 years at City University in New York, and is currently UNESCO Chair of Foresight at the University of Makeni in Sierra Leone, and he's published in the Journal of Future Studies. Over to you, Kamara.
Wow. Wow. What a wonderful event. I just realizing that, with all that the two professors have said, I just realized that I am actually ignorant. So I will try to do more. And as this event when this event started, I actually started looking at these issues more than I have ever done. And I realized how much there is to know, how much research we need to do, how much our whole people owe to this history. And the way that I want to start to promote, to talk about that, is to give you some story in a very personal way as to how I come to relate to Jamaica, and possibly how the rest of what is now Sierra Leone, maybe West Africa, relate to Jamaica, because some of us did not come from the rich culture of Freetown. We came from the countryside that was considered another world as set up by the colonial system itself. So I came from way up in the mountains of Sierra Leone, and I didn't spend any time in Freetown. I went to the United States. But a few things happened when I go to the United States. One of them, of course, was to realize that I'm actually African Black. I didn't really know that. But this had happened. I go over there, and the town where I go to, it was a big celebration in a way. Some African guys coming here and they put in the papers, and all of a sudden I'm getting all these invitations to talk. And the questions that people are asking me are so, so ignorant, so prejudiced. Even for a young 17-year-old man, I was totally turned off, even though I didn't know much about race at all. So how did I react? I reacted by
I know that we're having some technical difficulties with Kamara Kaule. Oh, you're there? You're on mute. Just unmute, Kamara. Can the technical team help us? He's trying to unmute. Can you unmute?
You hear me?
Yes, yes, hearing you now.
Okay, we had to do some things.
Okay.
We're using two laptops just to
Okay.
get this thing. Well, I just want to say that I became, I was so turned off by my little experience there, you know, in a New England town, that they were asking me all these questions, and something, my reaction was to say something to them that I thought, you know, was so impossible, but that they are so stupid that they will not understand, they will not know. So I will tell them I'm from Jamaica. Now, I didn't know anything about Jamaica. All I know is maybe just the name. So I tell them Jamaica, and these people believe that I'm from Jamaica. so the one, they will stop asking me the questions about Sierra Leone, about Africa, about whether or not you know, we sleep in trees, or how we get up those trees. So, but as time goes on, as I was saying that, then I began to curious about where did I get this idea to say that I am actually Jamaican. So I went to college, and there I met students from the Caribbean and Caribbean and America, and they realized this young man, after a while, they realized that I wasn't being arrogant. I just didn't know anything about this history of the transatlantic slave trade and all that is meant. I really didn't know. So they took me on and began to educate me. And part of what they educated me with was music. And as they exposing me to music, I realized I actually grew up on some of that music. You know, I grew up on those things without them being discussed by any of my elders where I come from, like ska. I grew up with ska. Ska means, well, Don Drummond. I still love Don Drummond. I was saying to them, you know, I love Don Drummond. They're saying, well, Don Drummond was before reggae. And they decided educate me about it. And reggae began to teach me a lot about, you know, the African culture as such. So moving very fast as such, I go to graduate school, and eventually I have close friends like Dr. Rosalie Hamilton, who I went to school with, and they took me to Jamaica. And when I went to Jamaica, one day, I was going with Dr. Hamilton to Mandeville in Jamaica. And along the way, we stopped to get some food on the highway. And they were selling something at that time, I remember, something called bami. Now, bami made of cassava, stuff. I love it so much. And you know what? It reminded me of cassava bread. Cassava bread is what we usually, coming from the countryside or going to the countryside from Freetown, we get to Waterloo, which is one of those Creole towns, and we always stop for cassava bread. And bami tasted so much like cassava bread. So being there, I began to automatically feel my connection to the culture of Jamaica, the food of Jamaica. And besides the fact that the sound, the music of Jamaica, I began to feel the food and other things of Jamaica that are really very, very African. But moving on from that, part of the experience was going up in the hills in Jamaica.
I think we've lost you again, Kaole. I think we can all see that picture on the screen. I think we've lost him. So the technology doesn't always help us. but we'll give him a few more minutes. Now, while we wait for him to reconnect, I'm going to encourage you all to please put questions in the chat because we're going to move right into Q&A. And I'll just take a few questions while we allow Kaole Kamara to reconnect. Are there any pressing questions? Let's do that now. But we've really had some rich historical presentations so far. And I know that some of the cultural connections is what we're about to hear from Kamara. Any questions and comments on what we heard so far? All right, so we have initial poll that's on the screen, so I can bring that to your attention. So when you registered, we would have asked the question, you to rate your knowledge about the historical and cultural ties with Sierra Leone and Jamaica, and these were your answers. So most of you did not know anything at all, no knowledge or very little knowledge, and just 5 persons were extremely knowledgeable, and I suspect they're mostly the presenters. So this is the initial poll, and we're going to ask you to answer that question again before you leave. And I know that some of you are going to leave us shortly. So as soon as the presentations are finished, we'll ask you a similar question, and then see if you've improved your knowledge and how you rate your knowledge after our presentation today. Kaole,
so I'm back on here.
Thank you.
Yes. So anyway, let me go. Yeah, I'm at Gobe. I didn't forget Gobe. So don't forget Gobe in the mountains there. I run into this older lady, and then with all the food and all the welcome, etc., she started using some words like, I think uno, which is to me, it's a very deep Creole word that I don't actually use. I just know it as a Creole word. And as time goes on, I begin to find out so much more of the language that is spoken in Jamaica that is in fact part of not just Freetown, but the whole of Sierra Leone. And in fact, it has extended beyond Sierra Leone to all the other British colonies, or former British colonies in West Africa. That's Creole, and Creolization was something, as Professor Ali was saying, was spread with all the education and things and commerce that was, and British administration being headquartered in Sierra Leone at one time. That language is something that now unites not only Sierra Leoneans, but West Africans of a certain history, from Gambia all the way to Cameroon. So you hear some version of Creole, and a lot of it is coming from that connection between Sierra
Okay, so looks like we've lost him again. So we're going to, there's a question about how do you vote. So we're going to get poll questions in the, you'll see it come up on the screen shortly. And we want to, you will hear information about the upcoming mission to Jamaica, led by Ambassador Y, and that official opening of the consulate. I think Kamara is back now. Yes.
Yeah. So I as one professor from a college reminded me last week, he said we have so many words in common that even one of our crosswords, which refers to the body part of a woman, is also the same thing as in Jamaica. Something with cloth. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. But we have that same word here. We have so many words in Creole that are really very coming from Jamaica. Maybe they came from Africa to Jamaica and came back to Africa, which as Professor Ali is demonstrating, there might have been so much back and forth that we don't even know about, of people going to Jamaica and coming back from Jamaica as such. So I began to feel very much it's an African country. It looks like Sierra Leone. The mountains, on over Kingston, are just like the hills of Freetown used to be, especially when it was green. So I really began to connect very much to the music and the sounds, but also with the landscape of Jamaica. But I must tell you,
Okay, so we'll try one more time, just in terms of if there are any questions or comments, but he just made a very interesting reference to that cloth word connected to women's body part. I'd love him to tell us more about that. Ladies, don't you want to know what is he referring to?
There's a hand up.
Okay, sorry, yes, I'm now seeing your hand. Could you ask your question quickly? Alucin?
okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, you're back. Okay, good.
I am back. So anyway, I was saying that while I began to feel Jamaica, I began to learn, especially from my background, that some of the things that were in Jamaica that are considered something that for most of the world that they are derived in Jamaica, or even if they're not derived in Jamaica, they are derived from another part of the world. I began to find out that some of those things are at least found in Sierra Leone, especially the areas where I came from. For example, dreadlocks. Dreads, for most people, that when I went to America, people associated dreads with just Jamaica or Rastafarianism. But I grew up in a society where you had Manding people and Fulani people, and the Fulani section of the Fulani, they wear dreads. That's their tradition. This is serious. So I grew up with those people, and those were the musicians actually, the Nyamakala. So to me, there was a direct connection there between Jamaica, Jamaican style and indigenous African style. Here in Freetown and other places, we call it Dada. You see, and some people think that people are actually born like that. But people, give it the same kind of reverence that people who wear locks give wearing locks as such. So the style, the kind of aesthetic that people have is something that I think crosses between Sierra Leone or West Africa and Jamaica as such. It's not just the food, the dance, from Gumbe to Gumina, the different kinds of movement. That when you see us dancing to reggae or anything of the sort, this is the most natural movement that you can ever imagine that people can have for our culture and the people. And I was just told by a friend of mine, Dr. Njai, that in fact, there has been there is a set of recordings done by Sierra Leoneans in Jamaica. Again, enforcing this, I wish I could share that with you. But so now I'm talking about not just the sound, the views, the styles, the food. I want to get deeper into the culture, because what is really made me feel when I was there, I felt very much happy, but at the same time extremely sad, because I felt like a little boy or a little girl had just been brought to this island. And I've never been on an island before. I'm not an island person. I come from the interior. So all of a sudden, I'm on this island, and I'm thinking about being here as a little boy or little girl and looking across the Atlantic and not wondering whether or not I will ever get to go back home. And that idea, that feeling of wanting to go back home, and being afraid of not going back home had led to a lot of nightmares on my part. because I'm always having this nightmare that I'm going to go to take a plane and something will happen and I wouldn't get there, you know. And so, you know, the idea of longing to go back to Africa, I felt that thing must have been there for somebody in Jamaica. But as I've grown older and experienced more going back and forth to Jamaica and back, I realized that even when I am now in Freetown or in Kabbalah, I still have that longing to go to Jamaica. So what did I make of that? How do I make on one side, I'm feeling to go to Africa, on the other side, I'm feeling to go to Jamaica? Well, the way I look at it from my own point of view is that there is something unspoken. Because what we have spoken here about, we've spoken about history. We've spoken about people doing things. We're talking about what we can see. But there are other things that we all can agree on at some level. There are invisible forces at play. There are invisible forces at play. We are African peoples, many of us believe in wars, the power of wars. So all along this Atlantic going back and forth, people are saying things. People are acting things. People are leaving behind, they are leaving their bodies and taking on a spiritual form, which would be in the voices. So I can imagine that somehow I have been in Jamaica. I've been in the Loma Mountains. I've been in the deserts, but I've been there, you know, long time ago. The spirit of those ancestors, those who are left behind in Africa, the mother who lost their child and couldn't see their child again, the father who lost their child, the husband who lost their wife, or the wife who lost their husband, and they are looking, well, those spirits, the spirits of those who also were taken on those boats across the Atlantic, the spirit of those people survived beyond, obviously it survives beyond the physical bodies. And it is within that spirit that I come to look at Jamaica and Africa. And today, when I talk about Jamaica and Africa, I think about concrete things like, how do we live? How do we live our lives in such a way that resembles the unity that is us, the culture, the history that is us? I'll give you a few examples. Again, it's not from a psychologist's point of view, and it's not from a spiritual leader's point of view, or anything of the sort, or a historian's point of view. It's a personal point of view. Here is what it is. The first time I go to Jamaica, I found that, you know, the people say, oh, you know, it's more women in charge, women in control, women so and so and so. And I say, but our societies, where I come from, we are matrilineal. The idea of powerful women, you know, is nothing new to us. My mother was a very powerful person, you know, in her own way, in her own community. So you know, I didn't see any difference. But what struck me more is that it's the elder women I came across also who are of Jamaican ancestry. One of them was this woman, Mrs. Reed. Mrs. Reed was a music teacher. She was in New York, and she was like a mother to her community. She was the one that was doing the susu in the community. That's something I grew up with in Kabbalah. This partner thing that encourages young people to save for their goals. So she would make us save money through the susu, so we can do things, so we can, pay the rent, so we can pay school fees and all that stuff. So she was there until she was doing that until she could no longer do it. And I remember another elder Jamaican woman who was the mother of Dana McFarlane. And some of you might know Dana McFarlane because for a while she was the director of the Gabi Center in Jamaica. And when her mother sees me, at that time I was so skinny and small and stuff like that, she was always, like, what does what would your mother feel? So they're always trying to feed me and thinking about, what I must be going through, because they saw me as their child. And so I really grew up in a way looking up to those people. And I go down to my mother-in-law, who is Jamaican, and the more I know her and I think about her generosity and her care, and I realize that She is exactly like my mother's sister. My mother's sister was exactly like that. So the kind of relationships I've developed in Jamaica, with Jamaicans are the same as my community here in Sierra Leone. And I think that is natural because we have gone back and forth in
Okay, so in the interest of time, Kamara, Kaule, if you're hearing me, I'm going to ask you to try to wrap up so that we can get a few questions and comments in. Not sure if you're hearing, but we already have a question, and then I'm going to ask Alusen Kamara to maybe speak and ask her question. But I saw a question in the chat that I'll deal with right away. Trevor Ferran asked the question about Jamaican products on the shelves in Sierra Leone. So I will ask Mohamed Kose to comment on that. He's going to do the closing remarks. But I want to say that one of the objectives of this Sierra Leone-Jamaica Link Up is, in fact, that more Jamaican products will be on Sierra Leonean shelves and more Sierra Leonean products will be on Jamaican shelves. And we're hoping to do that as we go along. And stay tuned, you'll hear more about our mission in February of next year. And we'll have much more information about the trading relationships that we want to do. So Kamara, if you're back, if you're not back, I'm gonna just thank you for your presentation, understand the challenges of the internet, understand the difficulties that you have, and ask that the audience, while you try to connect, just answer this question again. You would have heard enough of the, Kaule's presentation, and I'm sorry we couldn't get a better audio there, but please tell us what you think in terms of your own understanding of what you've heard. Obviously in 2 hours, which we're just about going to 2 hours, you will not have complete understanding of this amazing history because we're all learning as we go. And so, we want to just be able to test and to track the extent to which you've improved your knowledge. So we have 82 of you still online, and I know some of you are about to leave, but before you leave, please just let us know if you have to go. And I also want to encourage those of you, we have quite a few persons online, if you do want to stay a little longer beyond the 2 hours we allocated for this discussion, then we want to give you an opportunity to stay and introduce yourself, and so that we can know more about you, so that some of that link up can take place with members of the audience here. So if you have a few more minutes, at least another 15 minutes, half an hour, we'll go beyond to 30. But let me now take the questions. I want to ask Alusen Hassan Kamara to pose her question. I don't see any other questions in the chat. And then we'll just move to wrap up, have closing remarks and wrap up by 2:30 Jamaica time, so that we are true to our commitment for a 2-hour session. And then we invite you, if you want to stay on, you can stay on, and then we'll have more questions. Alusen Kamara, you have a question? Your hand is up. Do you want to say something? All right, if not, then I am going to ask, Mohammed Kozia to just say a few words about this upcoming trip and to just bring some closing remarks.
Thank you very much, everyone, for taking time off your busy afternoon and evenings, wherever you are, to join us. This has been very informative and very spiritual for some of us. I think what we've heard, there is some transformation aspect to this. I think I want to thank Dr. Hamilton and her colleagues for putting this together. We've been working on this for about a couple of weeks now, and Dr. Hamilton actually is going to be our Honorary Consul, so Jamaica for Sierra Leone. She went to Sierra Leone, I think about 5 weeks ago, coincidentally connected with Dr. Kewuli that you guys had from. They went to university together, and you know, that's how this thing started. But interestingly, I was touring the city with Dr. Hamilton. It will interest you to know, when we go to places where they sell African costumes, you will see Dr. Hamilton like a kid in a candy store. She wants to grab all the fabrics and all that good stuff. There was a day, there was a driver who was assigned to Dr. Hamilton. So me and Dr. Hamilton were standing outside at the entrance of the hotel. So I called the guy. The guy, his name is Shaba. Of course, his name is Mohammed Kamara, but his nickname is Shaba. And Dr. Hamilton was like, "What?" I said, "Shaba." I'm like, "Yeah, Dr. Hamilton, you don't even understand the impacts of the Jamaican culture in Sierra Leone." So for me personally, this is very, very spiritual, I can say, like my elder brother Kewuli said, because there's so much Jamaicans you meet in the diaspora, in London, in the US. You know, when we talk, when we start sharing stories, you see the connections, you see the linkage. I went to Howard University. One of our history professor was a lady. She's from Jamaica, Professor Robinson. Professor Robinson was telling us about Sierra Leone, about the Nova Scotian. So this thing, we've been hearing this thing for so many years, where there's always a right time for something to happen. And I believe this is the right time for us Jamaicans and Sierra Leoneans to come together and forge a future for both countries in terms of trade, investment, culture, music, and sports. You know, Mr. Kewuli was talking about music. And if you listen to music from Jamaica and listen to music from Sierra Leone, there's some similarities. For now, with computers, people can make beats just like that. But back then, when people have to read music, practice, you see the similarities of what the Jamaican music and the Sierra Leone music is. So I think there's a big relationship into that we're going to get to. But fast forward, I actually watched a Broadway play called Fela. Now, Fela is called Fela Kuti. Of course, now there's no secret that Afrobeat music, that's how they call it now, seems to be going global in the US, in Jamaica. My Jamaican friends, there's a song that they love. It's called African Queen. African Queen is a song that we Africans were done with like 5 years ago. For the past couple of years is when the Jamaicans actually heard the music. That music is among their top 10 for the past couple of years. So I'm saying all this to say there's a relation, there's a connection, the music, the culture, and other stuff. But what I want to say, when I watched the play Fela, it was a Broadway play that was financed by Will Smith and Beyonce. So interestingly, during the play, there was a part where Fela, who the current breed of Nigerian music credits as the godfather of Afrobeats. So Fela is the one that is getting the credits all over. But interestingly, when I watched that play, I heard Fela complaining in the play that, you know, I promoted my show. I was expecting this crowd. All of a sudden, there's an artist from Sierra Leone. His name is Geraldo Pino. When Geraldo Pino came to Nigeria, everybody abandoned his show to go watch Geraldo Pino. And this guy is from Sierra Leone. So he said, Geraldo Pino is not your regular name from Sierra Leone. So I went and did my research. And I realized this guy's actual name was Gerald Payne. And it was part of a group called the Heartbeats. There's a very notable professor called Professor Cecil Blake. Now, Cecil Blake and Gerald Payne were part of a music group called the Heartbeats. The Heartbeats was a popular group in Sierra Leone. We have other musicians like Dr. Olo, Kalenda. When you listen to those traditional music, you hear that Jamaican reggae, that bass, that rhythm, Jamaican influence into our music. So I'm saying this to say, this is an opportune time for us to pick this up and run with it. And thanks to Dr. Hamilton and Brother Keule, when we're Radisson, when we're talking about this, Dr. Keule said to me, Mohammed, you don't even understand how spiritual this is for me. I've lived in New York all these years. I've been called a Jamaican, I've been called this, but this discussion here is very, very spiritual for me. I'm having goosebumps. And you know, what I told them was, you know, for everything in this world, there's always a right time. And I believe this is the right time. This is the first of a series of so many events that we're going to put together. I think Dr. Hamilton is going to establish a consulate in Jamaica. We have an official program that we're putting together. I'm going to have us share that program, a tentative program on the screen, so I can go through the program. Dr. Hamilton, can we share that program, please? So basically, of course, Dr. Hamilton is going to officially open an embassy in Jamaica. Just a short story. There was a Sierra Leonean who left Sierra Leone and went to Cuba to go to medical school. I think as she was in medical school, I think she had, about a year or two, she met a Jamaican, a boyfriend, in Cuba. Of course, the Jamaican said, listen, why don't you come to Jamaica? Let's go to Jamaica for a holiday and then we'll come back to Cuba. They went to Cuba. Of course, her papers were not correct and she became stranded in Jamaica because her visa, student visa, expired. So she stayed in Jamaica for about 20 years. Long story short, there were issues with the marriage. She became homeless, her and her daughter. They were staying at an orphanage. It was an orphanage that contacted Dr. Hamilton. I think Dr. Hamilton, somebody somewhere knew Dr. Hamilton has a relationship with Sierra Leone. And Dr. Hamilton reached out to this orphanage and interviewed this lady and her 19-year-old daughter. Interviewed them. After that, Dr. Hamilton took them to her house. They stayed at Dr. Hamilton's house. Dr. Hamilton contacted our ambassador here, and they facilitated for this lady and her 19-year-old daughter to go back to Sierra Leone. When they came to Sierra Leone, that's when we learned there are so many Sierra Leoneans in Jamaica. I think Dr. Hamilton can correct me if I'm wrong. I think around 10 to 15,000 Sierra Leoneans that are based in Jamaica. So I'm saying all this to say, now there's going to be a consulate open in Jamaica, which is the start for us. So from February 5 to February 15, we're going to have series of events. First thing, the official activities on the flash, you can see there's going to be a Kingston night. For us in Africa, Kingston is a household name to us, especially with reggae. So there's going to be Kingston Market Night. There's a market that they host in Kingston, Jamaica, every Tuesday. Through the help of Dr. Hamilton, they've actually scheduled the first Tuesday in February to be something about Sierra Leone. So it will be Sierra Leone artifacts, products from Sierra Leone, food from Sierra Leone, and all that good stuff. And then there's also going to be an African Caribbean trade mission which is going to be hosted in collaboration with the University of West Indies. Of course, during those events, you have business networking, not a good stuff. There's also the cultural visits. And interestingly, we're going to visit the Bob Marley Museum. Bob Marley, for not just Africans, for everybody in the world, it's a legend. When you listen to Bob Marley's lyrics or his songs, Bob Marley actually sings about things that are relevant and happening today. So, I mean, there's no way we can go to Jamaica and don't visit Bob Marley Museum. You know, of course, there's a Island Music Festival. There's official opening of the consulate itself, which is Dr. Hamilton's office. So that official opening is what's going to create the ties for the Jamaicans in Jamaica, for Sierra Leoneans in the other Caribbean countries to reach out to the consulates for whether it's business, whether it's culture, for anything that you want to do. Sierra Leone, Dr. Hamilton's office is going to be officially open during this time. But of course, the last event for Dr. Hamilton's event is networking events. And then that's going to end around February 10, 11. But of course, nobody's going to go to Jamaica with the vacation and all that good stuff in Jamaica leave on the 11th and the 12th, where a few days from those days, it's Valentine weekend. So even though it's not part of the official activities, well, we've actually added the vacation, the Valentine vacation aspect to it, which is going to be from the 10th to the 15th. So there will be beach excursion. As you can see on the flyer, there will be historic water rafters. There will be Home of the Maroon. We will go to Ocho Rios, so many other parts. But as I said earlier, this particular program is in development. This is the start of a lot of events that we're going to do. Once we fine-tune this particular program for the February 5 to February 15 event, I know there's so many of you who your email addresses are on the link that we sent. We're going to communicate, send more information as the program evolves. I want to thank every one of you. I want to thank Auntie Syrian Boomer, Mr. Gordon Tapa, so many of you that are on this call. I know it's difficult to log in from Sierra Leone because the internet is kind of sketchy. That's why we can see Professor Kewule going back and forth. So thank you very much to take time off your busy schedule to join us. Dr. Hamilton, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mohamed Kosia. He's the Trade and Investment Liaison at the Embassy of the Republic of Sierra Leone in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. And thank you on behalf of our team here in Jamaica for your excellent support for the work we're doing and collaboration. Now, we're going to just wrap up. I know some of you have to leave, so I just want to thank our partners, again, Ambassador Bernal, Principal Research Fellow from the P.J. Patterson Institute of African and Caribbean Advocacy, Professor Mansura, and he's from Forbes College, Ibrahim Joseph Conte from the University of McKinney, and Milton Samuda from the Institute of Law and Economics. The partnership is really what brought all of this together. So we're really, really grateful for your partnership. And I definitely want to thank those presenters. Wow, our eyes are now open, right? We've learned a lot from Professor Clinton Hutton, Professor Joe Alley, and Kauli Kamara. You know, we really opened our eyes, and I think we have a better understanding of this relationship. Some of us have just a little bit of ideas. Perhaps we can get the poll of the increase in knowledge since this session, and if that can come up on the screen. If not, we'll send that to you. But also we've put in the chat a link for you to give us more info. If you want more information about what you heard Mohamed Kosia just tell us about with respect to this mission in February, please fill out that form at that link. And it's just in the chat. Dwayne Godsmeyer, the CEO of the Institute of Law and Economics, has just dropped it in the chat, and we'll keep dropping it as you leave. And we encourage you to fill it out, to tell us if you're interested so we can really shape a mission and a set of events that will suit your while, but especially for those of you who are traveling from the US or Sierra Leone. So at this point, what I'm going to do is to just pivot to you, the audience, 76 of you who are still here, to just talk to us, introduce yourself. I saw very interesting comments in the chat of individuals who have deep connections with Sierra Leone and Jamaica. We'd love you to tell us about it. So we're going to just open up now. Please, if you've not completed the poll, I'm just encouraging you to do that before you leave, if you have to go. And for those of you who are here, can you just, introduce yourself, let us know who you are. I see Gordon Tapper has his hand up, so I'll give the floor to Gordon Tapper.
Hello, Rosalia. Let me congratulate you on hosting this wonderful event. I happen to have known something about the history of the Maroons, Nova Scotia, and being moved to Freetown, etc. And I'm happy to know that this is given greater air on a larger space. Last year, I hosted an edutainment event online in Jamaica, and which was hosted by, what's her name? They call her the Fluffy Diva. And I had some Jamaican artists, and I also had some Sierra Leonean artists perform. MDG is one, and another one that Kosi introduced me to, Natasha Beckley, as a rapper. And they were so good that the host said, we want you here on a show in Jamaica with our Jamaican artists. And it is something that I've had in mind, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do that sometime in the future, perhaps next year. I think that would be very good. Also, early in this year, I had a meeting with the Minister of Tourism of Sierra Leone, Dr. Mary Matu Pratt. I hosted her here in New York with my colleague, Dr. Judy Koryansky, and we took her around to Fin Partners. She wanted to meet organizations that could put tourism on the front burner. And I took her around to Fin Partners. And Fin Partners is very instrumental in Jamaican tourism and in Israel, South Africa, and other places. In addition to that, I had a session with Dinah McIntyre Pike. I'm sure you know for Rosalia. She started something we call countryside tourism and villages as businesses, where rural communities can share in the benefits of tourism. What is very popular now, people go to all-inclusives, and many don't even put a foot outside of that all-inclusive hotel. And the villages of business is a group of villages, or a village will entertain a busload of people, a typical day in our village where they will have breakfast, they will have lunch. A typical day they will show dancing, they will show craft, and they make money out of tourism. So that is something that we suggested, and we're still hoping that we can move further with that. And I noticed that tourism was not on the agenda there for February. It should have its own space. I also would like to say that in 2014, my organization was the very first organization that hosted an event at the United Nations on the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia. We did that in the ECOSOC chamber with all 3 ambassadors. And and the WHO. And subsequent to that, we hosted a huge concert, awareness raising concert in the General Assembly Hall, in which Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was the first speaker. And the Samantha Power, the US ambassador, and the AU ambassador also at the time from Angola, and Kosi here, who is here on the show, he brought a number of entertainers, and we had we had a singer who sang "There Will Be a Better Tomorrow."
Thank you so much. I just noticed that we have Kawale Kamara back on, and I wanted, just before we run out of time,
okay, all
to
right,
give him
very
a chance
good.
just to, yes, but
Sure.
Thank you so much. We take note of the points if you have just raised, and we'll definitely try to incorporate them in our mission.
Sure.
Kamara, can you just use the few minutes we have to just wrap up? I hope we didn't lose you again. I have a feeling we just did. So that's why I was interrupting you a bit there. My apology.
Not a problem.
Oh, there you are. Yes. Perhaps you wanna, if there are any lasting comments you want to make before you go, now that you have internet. Go ahead.
Talking to me?
Yes. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay.
Just,
I'm gonna
just
make.
wrap up.
Give me the calabash over there, okay? I'm gonna do this. I've already cut my talk short, but eventually, what I wanted to say to you, to everyone that's out there, we believe, and I'm sure our ancestors passed this down to us, that water is the carrier of life. So as big as the ocean is, it carried our life. But it is not our bodies that were left under the ocean. It is the voice that was set out onto the drops of water that was taken across the oceans, right back to Africa and back to Jamaica and back to Africa, so that we survive. That indomitable spirit, indomitable strength, indomitable personality. We are words. Words do not die and words do not rust. Words do not die and words do not rust. What is said is done, what is done is said. And today I want you to join me, my brothers and sisters. Let us say something to the ancestors, to those who have made it possible for us to be here today, who wanted us to be here today. Those people whose energy and thinking and thought, men, women, children, even the trees and waters that feed us, that made it possible for us to be here today. I want us all to pour water to water, life to life for all the ancestors from Sierra Leone and Jamaica and Africa and the rest of the world that made it possible for us to be here today. Let us continue to use this water to feed the tree that Sister Rosalie was talking about before. I'm sorry I couldn't show the slides that I have presented, but maybe I'll share it another time. But the idea of the trees, of the houses in Jamaica, in Sierra Leone, the wooden houses, I have pictures of them. The church that Professor Ali was talking about actually had a small video of it. And the work that Sister Rosalie and I took to decide that's supposed to be the 99 steps to freedom that our people cross, and now it's labeled something else. And for all those things, for all those people, let's say, Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Let us say Ashe.
Ashe.
Let us come together to be.
Let it be. Ashe.
Yeah, Dr. Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Hamilton, during our promoting this event, there's someone who reached out to us who's a Sierra Leonean, but her husband is a Jamaican. They're based in London.
Okay.
They've been working on a few things. So I would love for us to have Linda say a few words before we close.
Sure.
Miss Linda, go ahead.
Well, good evening and good afternoon, everyone. I have to say, Professor Hamilton, this has really exceeded expectations in terms of, what I'd hoped to get out of this session. It has had really mind-blowing repercussions in terms of what we can achieve through this platform. But very briefly, to share with you that personally, I'm a Creole. My mother is a Creole, lives in a village called Adonkia, which was founded by Jamaicans who, when they came to the shores of Sierra Leone, picked that spot and said, "I don't care." And so the village is now called Adonkia. So that's on my mother and my grandmother's side. And on my father's side, we hail from Nova Scotia. So this has been a very spiritual and moving exchange for me. Very briefly, I've always worked within the development sector. I have been with my husband for over 30 years now. He's a Jamaican, but trained in Africa, and also trained directly with the Sierra Leonean dance troupe. He is a visual artist and also a choreographer. So he, in many ways, has a deeper knowledge of the traditions in Sierra Leone. And so we are currently working on things which have, very much resonate with what you're setting out to do here. And just to say on the music side, just echoing what Mohammed was saying, I was also the first African buyer of Virgin music in the early 80s. And I was responsible for setting up the reggae section and the world music and African section. So all of what he mentioned in terms of the resonances with the music is absolutely true. All those connections in terms of the music is very much something that is of particular relevance to me. And finally, I wanted to say on a personal note, I'm also co-founder of Nzinga Sounds, one of the longest running all-female sound systems in the UK. And we have played with some of the great reggae sound system men, including Lloyd Coxon. So, there's so many ways in which we're looking forward to collaborating with you and, taking this forward. For me, it's very moving, but very, very exciting at the same time. So thank you very much to all the organizers. I think it's really been phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Linda, I'm a huge fan of Coxon Sound. Let them know, please.
Well, he wants to come to Sierra Leone in December.
That's good.
I'll share with you some, obviously, when it's appropriate. And my husband, who's on the line, Dr. Patton, he's just written his PhD thesis on the genealogy of Jamaican dancehall. So he traces back the connections with Africa, with all the.
That's good. Bring them to Jamaica in February.
Yes, please. I'd love to see you, love to meet you, but we definitely will connect. Wonderful.
So much.
I see Mary Kalawali wants her hands up. You want to say something, Mary? Mary's hand is, yes.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mary Tarawali, and I'm with the United Nations in New York. I am a Sierra Leonean, but I love Jamaicans, and I have tons of Jamaican friends and acquaintances, and as well as Jamaican food, of course. It has been an honor and a privilege to have sit in on the presentations today. Mohammed is also a very good friend of mine and invited me on the presentation today.
Happy leaving. I just wanted to not be in.
I actually planned on going to Jamaica. I work on several projects on behalf of Sierra Leone here at the United Nations. And also I plan on establishing some ties with Sierra Leone, with Jamaica upon my visits. So I would like to say a very big congratulations to Dr. Hamilton again on the work that you've been doing, and also on being the Honorary Consul to Jamaica on behalf of Sierra Leone. And also I would like to thank our professors that presented today, and to just say thank you so much for this wonderful event that has not only educated me, but I'm sure so many of us that joined today. So thank you so much for the to the presenters, and thank you so much again to Dr. Hamilton for the work that you've been doing and for your appointment to Jamaica.
Thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. We're winding now. We just have about 5 more minutes. Any other comments? I want to thank, while I wait for other hands to go up, the team that has been working to put all of this together. The CEO of the Institute of Law and Economics, Dwayne Scottsblair, been doing a lot behind the scenes. Dwayne, if you want to say anything before you go.
No, Prof, I too have been finding this really insightful. Certainly happy to be on the call, supporting you in this effort, but also learning as a part of the journey as well. So thanks for the opportunity. I'm thankful for everyone who joined on and the comments that we've seen. And then also for me, I just want to see where do we go from here. Lots of discussions need to be had. We certainly, as you mentioned, can't move the needle too much in the 2 hours, but I've certainly moved from where I was when I was registering to where I am at now. So really and truly grateful to be on the platform. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. I see Patricia Green has her hand up. Patricia, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad I remembered to get on and I'm on the road. I just want to say I missed a couple presentations, but what I heard was fantastic. I'm an architect. Historic preservation is my area of expertise. And I have for years been particularly excited about Freetown in Sierra Leone and the connections architecturally with Jamaica. And I want to just say that it's something that I'm very interested in exploring. And I'm anxious to meet colleagues and practicing persons there to begin to make those connections in a real, tangible way, especially those wooden buildings in your town, which I heard, I can't remember who said it, the government is saying, oh, well, they're terrible and maybe it's a fire hazard. That's heritage, and how can we do something about that as 2 nations working together as one? Thank you so much, Rosalie. Congratulations. Big, big kudos to everyone who has done this. This is great. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you so much. Joanne Richards.
Yes, greetings. And I mean, I still kind of don't even want to leave, even though it was just 2 hours that was slated for this meeting. It's really been exciting for me. I am editor for a magazine called the KW Magazine, Crucial Connections in Faith and Culture. And the last time we published an issue was last year, March, and the feature article was showing the Jamaica Sierra Leone connection. Now, the aim of the magazine is to facilitate conversations about worship and cultural identity among people of African descent, both on the continent and in her diaspora. So, we try to make these connections. I was just like, when I saw the email in my inbox yesterday, I was thinking, yes, what is this, and how did I not know about this until just now? But I really do appreciate the invitation to attend. And when I heard, was it Professor Ali who mentioned the Trelawney connection first? I thought, oh my goodness, I just found out recently, like within the last week or 2, that my great-grandfather was actually from Trelawney, and I had thought he was from Manchester. But my friend who gave me the information for the article had told me that Richards was a name in Sierra Leone. And I was like, what is this? So I am really just so excited. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to faith-based connections between Jamaica and Sierra Leone. So if we can talk more about that, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you so much, Joanne. Imam, I see you have your hand up. Imam.
Are you?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
go ahead.
good, good. Yes, I was saying thank you to Kosi. He invited me to this, coming to find out a very, very exciting, informative session that we've just had. I must confess, I didn't pay much attention to the history before, though I would say I knew bits and pieces about it, because, you know, growing up, we of course love things coming from Jamaica, the music and whatnot. And just looking it up, we had so much in common. Of course, the Gombe and stuff like that. we understood like the Maroons coming from Jamaica, settling there. As the historians have said it all. I come to find out really that my area is religion, actually. As you can see, an imam is a leader of the Muslim community. And I will just find out that it's hardly for one to suggest or know of a Muslim Maroon that, you know, mostly is Christians, Protestants, and what have you. But I come to find out, which I would like to even know more about, my background or my ancestral background is the Akus. And I've come to realize that, you know, the Creole setting comprises of the Akus, which are basically people from the Creole, and we have them in the Muslim and Christian denomination. Because when we talk about the Akus, they speak Creole. That's basically their language, as well as the indigenes of regions and places like that. They are Creole. So the distinction would be that we as Muslims are Aku Marabu, and then the Creoles would be like Aku Creoles. One went for Christianity and the other one being Muslim. So I'm kind of interested in that mix, which I really did not hear much about. I don't know if there's any history connected to that. So I'm just like looking forward to see what contributions, if I can, make to the mix of the conversation going on. But again, thanks to Dr. Hamilton for what you're doing. I guess this is a passion for you, and obviously you've been rewarded for that, and we wish you luck in your new assignment. And of course, my brother Kosi, you're the man, actually, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I want to encourage you. You have our numbers, and I'll just ask Dwayne to just drop our phone number and email address again in the chat, so that you can pose any other questions that you want to ask in the email. Just drop it in the email or send us a WhatsApp. But in February, if you come to Jamaica, you will have an opportunity to meet the chief of the Maroons in Flagstaff. And I happen to know that he's Muslim. And so there would be a very good connection there. Yes, in fact, Flagstaff was formerly Trelawney Town. And so the Maroons have, you know, are there, and that history is well known. So please do come, and we'd love to deepen that understanding of that religious and Muslim connection. I see.
So Dr. Hamilton, just a quick plug. Now,
Yes.
that particular statement about the Imam being a Muslim and the Trinity, that's how I'm going to get my Muslim brothers to come to Jamaica. So that's
yes, yes, absolutely. All right. So H. Patton, I see your hand is up.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, evening, everybody. I just wanted to say, Dr. Hamilton, congratulations on the team for putting on such a wonderful event. I have put something in the chat because I'm a Jamaican. I was born 20 days after my mother arrived in the UK, and I never forgive her for that. But I go back and forth between Jamaica. I did my PhD on the genealogy of Jamaican dancehall. So I looked at the spiritual underpinning of dancehall. And I subsequently wrote the book, Reading Religion and Spirituality in Jamaican Reggae Dancehall Dance, Spirit Bodies Moving. But in doing that, I've always been back and forth between Africa and the UK, because I trained originally in Ghana with the National Dance Company. And then I had the honor of working with the National Dance Company in Sierra Leone, training them and training the independent artists as well. And doing professional development training, as well as choreographing a production, and then taking some of them taking artists from across the region and doing an international collaboration in Nigeria as part of the Commonwealth as a government meeting. So I've always had that connection, but more recently it has been strengthened as we've been doing the Decolonizing Education for Peace project, which is a project that's happening in a number of countries across Africa, but I actually led the one in Sierra Leone, and as a result of that, it meant that we were working within storytelling, within theater, and within film. And so as we were working, we were making the connections between Jamaican practices and African practices. And going forward, we're looking to produce a carnival-based project next year in December. So we're hoping to bring together those in the diaspora to take them to Sierra Leone and Ghana, so that it will be connecting the two countries, collaborating with them, and bringing them together using carnival arts practice and masquerade. So that is something that we've already been looking at. We've already been to Sierra Leone to meet with some of the key artists and people who will be taking part in it. And we will be connecting with yourselves to make sure that the Jamaican contingent will be strong and very present.
Absolutely. We will definitely be in touch.
Thank you.
Anthea McLaughlin, over to you.
I think Mr. Patton knows that I'm in the land of carnival, and that's why he ended with carnival. But so it's amazing. So I just want to say that there's only a few people that would keep me on for 2.5 hours. And that's the person, Rosalia Hamilton, and a few others who are here with me, Kamara Kuwele. And I feel that this is a divine intervention moment for real. And that, you know, for any movement to happen, for any transformation to happen, it has to be the people that make the difference. There has to be intentionality in that space. And I know that, I'm in the space right now where people are purposeful and intentional. So I just want to say that makes a difference. I just want to say congratulations to you, Rosalia, for who you are and what you do, and for the people on the panel. One of the things that I was thinking when I was listening, and I was saying, you know, I've been saying, you know, why don't we do more trade between Caribbean and Africa? And then I got the answer. The answer is that we need information and we need knowledge first about who we are and what our connections are before we can trade. You really can't do a robust trade of any kind if you don't really understand each other. And what I got here today is that this is the beginning. This is the beginning of this robust trade that's going to happen under your watch, Ms. Hamilton and the group, that we have to do more of this. I was thinking that, you know, if, you know, this information has to be taken to the communities, to the rural communities of Jamaica, to the rural communities of Sierra Leone, the people who are going to be facilitating this trade are our young people who really don't understand the history. You can place a bami in the hand, but if they know where this bami really came from, then there's more power in that bami in terms of what they would do with it and how they would trade it. We need to spend more time doing this more, and doing it in different places and different spaces. I think that's it. I heard Mr. Tapa, hi Gordon, how are you? Talk about tourism. And you know, and what's so funny, I had a call about a week ago where a colleague of mine, and Mr. Kuwele knows her, and she was talking about actually doing storytelling in hotels. And she was asking me, Anthea, you know, I want to do storytelling in hotels across the region in the Caribbean. I want to tell stories about heroes. And so that when a person comes to a country, they understand the country they're coming to, and they were responding to the whole issue about inclusive hotels, etc. They just come to hang out, but not really understanding where they are really. And I think we have an opportunity here to be very specific in that area. For everybody here, we have the prolific storytellers who can tell the story, who can share the story. And now we even have to be intentional about getting our people who are actually in those hotels understanding who we are. So there's a lot of opportunities here. And I just want to say congratulations to you, congratulations to the team. It's exciting. I'm here in Trinidad and Tobago, and I guess we have to figure out that link. So we have a Sierra Leone Link Up coming up in Trinidad and Tobago as well, but let's start in Jamaica. I'm here, Andrew was behind you to support all of you here, and just say that, you know, movement has begun. Congratulations to everyone.
Thank you so much, Anthea. Cozy, I hope you heard that, the Sierra Leone Caribbean Link Up.
May I add something, Rosalia?
Yes, quickly.
Anthea, good seeing you again.
Yes, pleasure. Nice to see you again.
Your friend is asking for storytellers to go to the hotels to tell stories. The tourists would probably love an opportunity to go to the community. It may be in the class, in the schoolroom. It may be in some other place to hear storytellers. They can pay a small fee to, you know, and the bus, it can be on the program. You go down into the lobby in the morning and you see in the hotel lobby, trip to this, to meet with the people, and the people will get something out of it. Not just the storyteller, but the community.
Quite so. And that's what community tourism is all about. Absolutely. And in fact, that whole Trelawny Maroon is just not very far from Montego Bay. And I know that there were efforts to get a whole, what you call it, a whole trail, you know, history tours into Flagstaff. But, you know, there's been some issues and challenges there. But listen, we could go on. This is now 2 hours and nearly 45 minutes. I do want to thank you all so much, all 55 of you who are still here. And we're definitely going to do this again. You will hear from us. We will not only give you information about February, but we'll also ask you questions about what next you would want us to have in this link up, because your thoughts are important, and certainly we want to deepen the relationships that we've just started through your eyes. So please look out for our emails. Please respond to the questionnaire or the polls so that we can have, we can make this link up relevant to you. Thank you so much, and all the very best for being here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Rosalia. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, presenters, Professor Hutton, Professor Ali, Kamara. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
It has been beautiful, yes.
Or you can also talk to.
Yeah, you can.
Sometimes you limit those things to the main participants.
Yeah.